On this Haag-Streit BD or BC, sometimes the slit adjustment assembly needs to be refurbished. It might drift, or it might be very hard to turn, and so that will need to be taken apart, cleaned, and then re-lubed with number 9 grease. I'm going to break it down and show the parts and see if we can correct this drifting slit illumination assembly. Before you start taking anything apart, you might want to make some observations before you do, make diagrams, whatever, and you'll notice that the knobs, they're both tightened on the same point. There's a flat spot on the axle that screws it down into, and you'll notice if you may be turning this black knob, so if you might want to even put a little mark there or something to remind you. But when this is at 0, when your slits are at 0, this bearing that turns on this axle, that pushes this rod up and down, that pushes your stage, when this is at its lowest point on 0, you will be able to notice the bearing assembly right in this window. That's going to be the bottom, so that will always be 0. So regardless of whether you don't remember where this was, just remember that at 0, your bearing that is on this axle shaft will be at its lowest point. So the BC and the BD are together, the same thing. We'll take this one off, and it's at 0, and you will notice it's correct. Take these 2 knobs off, and behind the knobs, the thing that gives us the tension is a spring. There's a spring on each side, and that's what is going to give you the tension. There's nothing you can screw in or tighten or anything to make it tighter. It's just held, its tension, with these springs on both sides. These springs. Now you notice inside the knobs there's a pin, a little pin, and these pins will coincide with these washers. There's a washer on each side. But these turn regardless of where this axle is positioned. You see the flat points? That's where it's going to eventually be, the knobs are going to be screwed down on those flat areas. But these move. So just remember, you have this metal washer, you have the knob, you have a spring, you have this metal washer with the notch, and then a piece of felt, round felt washer that goes right against this black plastic piece on both sides. and you can tell there's not as much tension as when the knobs and springs are in there. So to really refurbish it, we need to take this apart and clean the old grease off of this shaft, this actual shaft, and re-lube it with Haag-Streit number 9 grease. This has a little bit of tension on it. It's a little thicker viscosity, and that's what you will want to use. So we can go ahead and take these off. Oops, that one fell out. Okay, so you'll notice that this side, the left side, will have this part of the axle, this half, shaft with the pin sticking out, and this side will have this side with the matching notch. This is how it's going to go back in eventually after you've cleaned it. So you want to take these apart and clean the inside of these. Clean your shaft, axle, both sides. Clean those. Clean everything. You can clean it with something like this. And then we're going to put a light coat of number 9 grease on everything. After you've cleaned all that and cleaned everything inside, we can put it back together. This side on the left will have a little mark. That's where you're going to line it back up. That's where your measurement is. That will be on the left, and the other one will be on the right. And it's going to be going in here like this. Small end there. This one greased. Now inside here you have the little piston. See, this rides up and down, and it's going to push this little piston in here. We're calling it that. This is pushing this up and down as it goes, as you turn it. And then that will push this rod, and this pushes your stage up and down. That rod goes through here, and it will push your stage up. That affects your slit assembly. Make sure your little piston is inside here. Clean this and put a little bit of rim oil on it. Make sure it's free to go in and out. Okay, we're going to match these up and turn to where they're both in, and we're going to reposition our black pieces to line back up with our marks. tight. Making sure we can still, everything is connected correctly. Hold them tight. Okay, with everything clean, there should still be a little bit of lubrication on these felt washers, so might not have to put anything on those. Put your felt washer and your metal washer on, and then put your knob on. Remember this flat part is going to be where your Allen screw is going to tighten onto. Insert our spring, and if you'll notice, this pin is going to be connecting into this notched washer, but it's going to be like 180 degrees opposite of the flat part of your shaft. So your shaft is there, well, your little notch is going to be 180 on the other side. Here's your pin, and 180, there's your screw. So have our shaft lined up. And once you're putting this on, as you turn it, it'll fit into where the notch is going. You can feel it click into the notch on the knob and the notch on the washer. You can go ahead and tighten this down, making sure we're on the flat part of our shaft. Holding it tight as we screw it on. And then the other side, same thing. After this is clean, you should already have enough lube on this felt washer. Put that back on, and we're going to look for 180 opposite of the flat part. Put our spring on. If it goes right into the notch, you won't feel the click, but if you're a little off as you turn it, it will find the notch. These being the same, tighten it up as you're holding firm. So the springs and the number 9 grease are the things that are going to be giving you the tension on this shaft, on this axle, this slit adjustment knob. So that's got to be, those are some important constants. Is it's clean and number 9 grease. If you use a thinner viscosity, it might not give you the tension you need. And you can check and see if you can go to your 0 and look down here, and yes, the bearing has bottomed out, so the rod will be at its lowest point and your stage will be at its lowest point. So this is both for the BC and the BD, and it's a little different than your normal Haag-Streit products, but this seems to work.